Hey everybody, my name is Edgar, and I'd like to welcome all of you to another episode of Defusing the WMSCOG. We're going to be speaking about Pastor Daniel Park. And so we're going to be sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly, our experiences with him, and also keep you guys updated, on what he's doing now. Because yeah, we find it a little disturbing. But before we jump into any of that, I pass the floor to everybody and allow them to introduce themselves.
Hi guys, I'm Toni. I was baptized in 2006, and that's when I first met Daniel Park. And I he was with me, I was with him my whole walk of faith in Zion. So he I also feel nervous, he has a special place in my heart still, and so that's like kind of complicated for me. So I'm excited to talk it out with you guys and kind of work it out. So yeah.
Cool. So, you guys know I'm Edgar, and I was baptized in 2010 in Wichita, Kansas, but my overseer was Pastor Daniel Park. And he was my overseer until about 2018, 2019. That's when they moved him to Australia. And yeah.
I'm Marissa. I was baptized in October of 2014, and Pastor Daniel Park was my overseer, and I was in a branch church of the main church where he was the overseer until also about 2018, 2019 when he was moved.
I'm Amy. I was baptized in April of 2015. Um, the overseers that I had were separate from Daniel Park. However, they worked directly close with him, and we typically spent a lot of time in educations there. So that was my experience with him.
All right. Well, I guess we can start off like from the beginning. And I think since Toni kind of like she's the OG, she kind of knows a little bit more about like when, Daniel Park went to, Colorado. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit like, how was he when you first met him? Like, was he different than when we got to meet him a few years later? Did he come a little more lax, or did he come in just like guns blazing? You know what I mean? Like, with swinging these prophecies around like he's known for.
No, when he first came, I don't know if you guys felt like it, but I always felt like Daniel Park had a sort of like sweet side to him, like a sweet soul. I felt like that with him. So, but anyway, when he first came, him and Quantanim came, and we would have like regular get-togethers. Like every weekend, we would play volleyball, or we would play basketball, or we would play soccer all together, and we would have like a lot of fellowships. We would have a lot of like Korean barbecue hangout time. It was very relaxed, and we would have a lot of weddings. We had a lot of weddings in the beginning when we were in the Northglenn Church. And there would even be times when we would have a wedding, and then there'd be like a little party in the church, like even with the family, the unbelievers. Um, but then, but when it came time to gospel work and, preaching time and everything, then that's a whole different story. And then as the years went on, it did get, more strict, and his ability to rebuke was he was just so good at rebuking that, he could really get you. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm glad you mentioned that because I definitely don't want to just speak, ill on him because I myself have mixed emotions with this episode. Obviously, I think that what he's doing is dangerous and he's preaching a false gospel with still lies and all of that. But that being said, I kind of really don't blame the guy just because I kind of understand how he was pushed out the back door. And, I can imagine, what he must be feeling, but I'm sure we all have kind of our own, different takes on how everything went down. So I'm kind of interested into getting into that. But I don't know if you guys ever heard that Pastor Daniel Park. I heard this from the elders in Korea that he was trying to become the chief of police in South Korea before he joined the WMS. It was him and his best friend, and unfortunately, he gets recruited into the cult, and all his dreams gone away. But his best friend actually became the chief of police. And it's kind of ironic because I could see Chief of Police Daniel Park, you know what I mean? Like the way he carried himself, that authority. Like he dude is a leader,
Yeah.
1000%. I would 1000% rather follow him than General Pastor. If I had to, like, gun to my head, which cult you gonna follow? Like, if I had to pick, I would 100% follow him, just because I think he's a better leader. It made a lot more sense, even though I'm not saying that what he's teaching is true. I think it's dangerous, but I'm just speaking to him as a person. I don't know how you guys feel. If you guys want to chime in on that.
Yeah, I
I
feel like he was. Oh, go ahead, Amy.
I do. I think we all kind of feel the same, like very mixed about it. Because me personally, I feel that he gave me a lot of confidence in what I believed in the doctrine. You know, um, so but like Tony mentioned, when it came to preaching, when it came to um like sacrifice for the church, it was a little intense, you know. So it was like a love, I don't want to say love hate, but like love, and I'm gonna not hate you because I'm in the church and learn how to love you in the church's perspective. So it is really hard to think about when we talk about him, because when I think about myself and a lot of other people that are in the Midwest, um, we stayed and endured a lot of hardships and things that I think the World Mission Society puts on you already. Like, I feel like this church already puts that on, but because of what he taught, it gave us more like confidence, or like what we thought was like spiritual strength, you know? So it is a little bit hard to talk about him because, in the church, you applaud him, but at the same time, after you leave, you're just like, you kind of think a little bit like, man, you know, I would have maybe seen the red flags if I wasn't encouraged by this education or this prophecy kind of thing. So, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
Marissa?
I, he was just so like charismatic. And I think we all feel like you guys mentioned the same. Like I have a lot of good memories with him, and there was also a lot of red flags that you don't see at the time. But one thing about him that made me love him was that he was such a hard worker. Like there's a lot who may like sit back and you're like, what are they really doing? Like with the leaders, but it seemed like Daniel Park was always like planning an orchestra event or some kind of like volunteer work. Or I don't know if you guys all remember the 2015 award event, how he put that on at an actual place and with all the catering and all the awards. It was crazy. It was like huge. And like it all fired us up. And we were like, you know, or like the educations that we'd go to, or like the get-togethers in like Vale or Estes Park, or that one, like there was like every summer there was like a 3 day event where we would study for hours on end, but we'd also eat good food together and we would play sports together. And like, I think we were just, he made us be so involved. Um, and we all really like looked up to him. Like he was like our biggest brother. And I think that's like partially what made us on fire at the time because he was a good leader. And the prophecies that he would come up with was just like mind blowing. But looking back when you leave, like Amy said, it's like, man, it's not good. You
Yeah,
know, it was,
it's such a good point because he was always in there with us, you know? It's like you need to build something, you need a new pew made. Okay, come on, brothers, let's do it. And it was like from the morning, early morning to late at night, he was always working with us, you know? And like, of course, managing and like bossing everybody around, but like he was always working hard. So you felt like you were like in it together, like going to heaven together. Like he's suffering too, like, oh yeah, I'm suffering, but he's suffering with us. So it was okay.
Yeah.
it really felt like that.
Yeah.
You know what's wild is like I feel like this is the Daniel Park episode, and I feel like we're just gonna be like guns blazing, firing shots, and we're like throwing giving. We're doing what he did. Literally, this is what he would do in his educations. He would start off slow. Then he'd rip you to shreds, and then at the end he'd patch you back up. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
this guy did a number on us. But in all seriousness, I think that it's important to do this and it's important to talk about it because the WMS, what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to spin a narrative. They're trying to say everyone who followed Daniel Park have no idea what they're talking about. The ex-members that are, making videos, talking, making podcasts, whatever on social media, anyone who's talking out that had anything to do with Daniel Park, they don't know what they're talking about because they learned from Daniel Park, and Daniel Park was a false prophet. Well, that doesn't make any sense because if Daniel Park was a false prophet, why let him teach in the Jerusalem temple? Why make him part of the General Assembly? Why would Zhang Gil Jah call my cousin directly and tell him in, I think it was 2016, Daniel Park is not a false prophet? Because I know where the WMS is going to go with this. Oh, well, Judas was, inside the church, right? And whatever. The problem was Jesus already knew that Judas was a betrayer from the beginning. Zhang Gil Jah, if she's God, she wouldn't have been calling members individually here in Wichita and saying, Daniel Park is not a false prophet. He just got the prophecy wrong. So there's a big difference in that. So you can't, those two things don't mix together. Either he was always a false prophet or he was a true prophet, right? And so I honestly, I don't know if you guys, maybe this first thing we want to talk about, but in my opinion, I think this is a personal beef between Daniel Park and General Pastor. What do you guys think?
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
like power struggle.
And I think he knows what to do because he was, I don't know if he was there, but he knows more about, what happened when An Sung Hong died. So he's just going to follow kind of that same pattern of breaking off, when Zhang Gil Jah dies. And I'm sure he knows, he's been to Korea and seen her. I don't know, but I also think that he deeply believes what he's doing is real. So, I think it's both. I think he wants the power and he really believes it.
Mhm.
What do you guys think?
I think based off what they're teaching, yeah. I think based off what both organizations are kind of pushing, the World Mission wants to say Daniel Park is false or whatever, but Daniel Park is also wanting to say that the general pastor or the world mission, whoever who not God the Mother. Daniel Park is not saying God the Mother is who's running the World Mission Society wrong. So with that in mind, who is he identifying then? Would be general pastor. So with that in mind, knowing each kind of side, I think there is some sort of disagreement between them. Um, But like Tony said, I think um I think not General Pastor Daniel Park, I think he believes it. Um he believes it. And that's why he's going full force and still claiming, you know, Zong as God the Mother, you know. Why would he still identify with her if he didn't believe it, you know? So, yeah.
I I think it's possibly one of two. Like it could go either way because I feel like it's kind of creepy. Like what the prophecies he shows about God the Mother are so convincing. Like you said, Amy, he gave us more confidence to believe in God the Mother because the prophecies he gives are like 10 times more evidence than WMSCOG. So he made all of us believe that mother was Elijah and mother was King David. Mother was fulfilling all these things that made so much sense with what we had already believed in. So it would make sense that he just is like a little delusional. Like he really like he had it down to like mathematical equations and years and dates and all these different prophecies in a big spider web to where it's like we all believed it. Like you almost got to believe it to be able to like teach it that good. And even if there's part of him that doesn't believe it, he's already got it down to a T, so might as well make a profit off of it. Like, you know, World Mission kicked him out, and that has been his whole life since what, 1986 or whatever when he joined the cult. So it's like what's left for him? He already has a good following from Denver. He has a faithful following, people who believed his prophecies. Why not establish his own thing, make money, still be looked up to, still, right, have that authority and that power? It's like even if he didn't believe it, it makes logical sense why he would do that. But the prophecies are like the way he has it all down is like so believable for like the members. Like you would think, yeah, he believes it by how good he has it down.
Do you guys remember his office was filled with all these books and books and books? And it wasn't like our church books, it was like different religious books and history books and everything. And I remember one time I was preaching, trying to convert a Seventh-day Adventist, and it was really hard. And he came with me to her house to preach to her, but it was really to like battle her, you know. But he brought all these books with him, and he knew everything. He just knew so many things, not just about the Bible and the Whimsicott, but about other religions and history. And so I
Wow.
think that that makes him very dangerous. Another reason why it makes him very dangerous. And like you said, he's been planning this for years and years, and I literally can see his spider web of all and the dates, that he didn't use dates a lot at first. But then once we moved to Denver church, then it was like so many dates all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's like, why are we adding all of these up? And then Jubilee, and it's just, I don't know. And it makes me scared because, what if he has more dates planned?
Oh, he does. I already
Mm.
heard from some of the members that are, joining him or studying with him or whatever the case, that they have 2025 as a date. I've heard it from multiple sources. So that's dangerous because again, we lived through when he was pushing other dates, and we know what happens during those times, when he's calling it the last adamant movement. I mean, I sold my Jeep, I sold my TVs. I'm really thinking like I was about to go to heaven. I remember a brother, I think I told this story on Great Light Studios. There was a brother who was living in a house he was renting, and he had already given everything to the church, so he literally disconnected the boiler the water heater and tried to sell it in a garage sale to give the money to the church because he wanted to participate in the last advent movement. That's how hardcore Daniel Park would make you feel. You know what I mean? Like you're literally taking baths in cold water because you're like all in on this. You know what I mean? And I think that that also I want to give a little background. Maybe we could talk a little bit about like different, because people might wonder like, well, why are you guys focusing so much on Daniel Park? Like, why is he such a big thing? Because we hear about the other pastors like John Lee, Daniel Lee, right, on the East Coast. And I think that all of them are like they're all dangerous in their own different ways. But not because I'm a Midwest member. This is literally what I've heard from people in different associations and even in Korea. When it comes to biblical manipulation, like Daniel Park was the best, is the best. And I want to touch on that a little bit. I want to bring up two perspectives real quick before we go into our first topic. I want to bring up the perspective of missionary Ron Ramos. So I had a conversation with him, and he was telling me when he first joined, the church, and it wasn't too many members, and at the time Daniel Park was there, and then you had Daniel Lee, and both of them were known for studying the Bible, but one was more known for being strict. That was Daniel Lee. But from the words of missionary Ron Ramos is that everyone had an understanding in all the branch churches in California at that time that it was Daniel Park. In his words, he was the best. He was the one that if you wanted to get pumped up, if you wanted to, go all in, it was Daniel Park that you would go to. And I think all of us here can attest to that. If would you rather listen to a general pastor sermon, in the morning on the Sabbath day, or is a snooze fest, or what I mean, or Daniel Park? It's going to be Daniel Park all day, right? He also mentioned, just kind of like how Toni was mentioning and Marisa and Amy was mentioning as well, like Daniel, according to Ron Ramos, Daniel Park was known as the builder. So he was always like trying to build and construction, and we saw that like in ours. So I know Toni was in Colorado directly with him, but like in the branch churches, that carried on. Even in the branch churches, that mentality of building and construction and all that. And then the second perspective that I want to bring up is C.W. Kim, who is one of the leaders of the COGJW, which is the original church that Ansan Hong established. According to him, the reason why, and again, this is not biased because he don't like Daniel Park, so he's not trying to defend him. He's just calling it what it is. He says that in the beginning, Daniel Park was his junior, but he was in the General Assembly, and that from the very beginning, his gifts of teaching were very apparent. And that made General Pastor feel threatened because General Pastor is trying to lead this thing. You got this young guy who can convince a whole crowd and make everybody like not only follow him, but it's like you feel a sense of loyalty to him, like because I don't know what it is. He just attracts you. You know what I mean? And like he wins you over. And he felt threatened by that. So the first chance he got sent him away to the United States. And so, to your guys' point of does he believe it? Does he not believe it? Why is he doing it? I feel like I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It could be either or, but I feel like in a way it is connected to the whole mistreatment of General Pastor, and there's definitely a beef there. And I think this is like Daniel Parks, like, okay, this is my get back moment. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna
Mhm.
show you that I've always been, better than you. You know what I mean? And so I think those are the two takes I wanted to bring up. But I don't know if you guys want to piggyback on any of that before we jump into the first topic, which is prophecies that he taught.
I wanted to piggyback off one thing. I think we didn't really touch on, you know, why he left, you know. I guess we kind of all just understand that he left, but maybe more of like what was the situation leading up to it from our understanding, I guess, because we don't know what he was told or what he's telling others, but maybe just more of like the situation, like leading up to it, like how it's been brewing, maybe. Because from what I remember, we've started from when I came in 2015, we were learning about these kinds of prophecies. One of them being Jubilee. He kind of really took a big take on that message, and then from year on to year on after that, it seemed that um, he was teaching these prophecies, but also showing how Zong fulfilled them. So there was like a little bit more than what I think, from my understanding, the head office usually taught. So I don't know if maybe we want to
Did any of you
touch.
guys go to Korea?
I did.
No.
Do you
Not
remember
me.
when they would tell you, they would warn you, don't study with other people in other places. Like we were allowed to like have our study group, like at our, study Bible time, with your group. But like you weren't allowed to like go off to the side and like practice preaching with each other or get signatures with each other from other places because they didn't want to know, they didn't want to like hear what the different churches were teaching. And when I first heard General Pastor sermons, I was like, this is so boring, because we were used to Daniel Park sermons. I was just thinking about how you mentioned that. But it's like they don't, it's like now Daniel Park is here in America and nobody can stop him, you know?
But it's good
Yeah.
that you mentioned that point because it's not just what Daniel Park teaches. Like that teaching is very universal. When someone comes to visit the church, they're not allowed to just get signatures from just
Right.
anybody. So same kind of rule is kept even at local churches. So I think that's really good that you pointed that out because it's not just what Daniel Park teaches, but there are like each pastor has their own teaching, you know. So
Yeah. When we were about to go to my trip was the 66th and it was 2016. And it's funny you point that out because on our visiting trip, it was right after Jubilee. So missionary Brandon gathered us in a room and prepped us and said there's going to be members from other states and other countries, and they're going to come up to you guys as famous because of the Daniel Park situation with the year of Jubilee being we were on fire, had so many baptisms, understood crazy prophecy. So missionary Brandon at the times prepped us and said, there's going to be a bunch of members coming up to you guys in awe, and you need to not say anything. Be humble and don't speak about it. If they ask, how many fruit did you guys bear? Just say, oh, father, mother. So like we were like specifically prepped about other members in other states and regions and countries for that specific time.
Right. They didn't want people to know what we were doing.
Yeah, that's
No,
So
wild. Do you think it was because they like it was specific to like Daniel Park and him telling him okay.
it was
They
very
did
specific.
okay. He did
Well, yeah.
you think he didn't want the others to know his strategy?
He more have said it because this was after, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a huge video that was sent worldwide that we did and right, Denver did about the year of Jubilee. It was what was it? The light show. Do you remember? Like
Yeah.
what was that called? It was like the light show. It was this huge one that was like put on by Denver. So the whole world seen it. So everyone at that time was like, oh my gosh, Denver, Zion, Daniel Park, like these prophecies, right? They're on
Yeah.
fire. They have it. So from the way being indoctrinated and missionary Brandon had said is like be humble. You were like famous in this area. If they like come up to you in awe and like, you know, just don't don't boast, don't talk about it, don't. So they made it sound like just be humble about it. Don't say like, yeah, we're on fire, like in but maybe from like the background point of view, it's yeah, they didn't want anyone else knowing the strategy of the Denver
Yeah.
region.
I'll say this. I feel like all the pastors are very competitive. They all want to be number one, you know.
Hmm.
But I feel like I think we can start talking because I think to Amy's point, like why he left, I think it has to do with the prophecies. So I
Hmm.
kind of want to bring that up, not in a sense where we're going to be breaking down every single no, but just mentioning them because, for instance, why is it important? Because when he came to Denver, that wasn't the first time he started making these end of the world predictions and tying them with prophecies or making up these prophecies on the fly. According to missionary Ron, and I have it written down, it was, let's see, in a, so he goes to Korea in 08, 09. He comes back with the renewed visa. During a sermon he's given, the church in California, he said, my visa, mother said, my visa will be here longer than we will. So this, he said this in 2008, 2009. So he was even at that time already coming up with, these fear mongerings, slash prophets, prophetical points, and he's known to do that, right? There, we can touch on the prophecies, but there's a lot of things he said to members directly. I remember one time he told my cousin, I'm not going to mention my cousin's name. He already hates me already as much as it is. He's a deacon in the church. But he told my cousin directly. He says, "Make all your effort this year." Then he pauses and he's like, "Because after this year, no more prophecies left to be fulfilled." And then guess what he did the year right after that, and the year after that, and the year prophecy, prophecy, prophecy. So he's always done this. And so I think maybe now I want to kind of talk about like one of the first prophecy, major prophecy that I think that he really was like kind of, and I think I don't know if this was so much him, it was also in Korea, but the 2012 thing. And I think Tony, you were definitely there for that time. Maybe take us through that time. Like, what were you told by Daniel Park concerning 2012?
Ugh. Well, I was thinking how I said we didn't do dates, until we moved to Denver. Because at first the church was in North Glen, but that was the one time we did do the dates. It was for 2012, through the feast calendar, you guys know. And so, through the so that's how it was always done, was through the feast. And then there was this time, it was maybe 2010, 2011, like, leading up to it. It's like everything was major focus on the feast. You know how Jubilee, like you're just like major focus on that point. Well, everything was major focus on the Feast of Tabernacles and like gathering the material and gathering the material, because this is the last time that we can ever gather material again. Because you know how he said, no more material, we're done building. And so, added everything up, we get to 2012. And so every sermon is about that. And when we would teach it, we would teach it with 2012. But then after some time, I guess as we're getting closer to 2012, then we were suddenly not allowed to teach it anymore, like with the time adding up, adding up the time at the end. And then also we were also very clearly told, even though we teach about 2012, we also use that verse, nobody knows the day or the hour. And so we were always told, always make sure that you mention that, kind of like save your butt kind of thing.
Yeah. But
But
was that before the 2012? Because I remember being told 2012 was the end and the math to
oh
back it
yeah,
up.
no.
And then it was
Mhm.
after that, that's when they started like make sure you add this verse where no one knows the day or the hour.
Right.
Because before that, they were definitely telling us the day or the hour.
Oh
They even
yeah.
told us the specific day. The last and
Mhm.
greatest day of the Feast of Tabernacles, 2012, that was supposed to be the end. That was
Do you
going to be
remember
when
that
we heard.
day?
Yes,
Yeah, I just
yes.
got chills because I remember, like, that very specific day, you're like, oh, this is the time. And then the time goes and you're like, oh, maybe they mean the sacred calendar. So maybe it's going to be
Yeah,
like January, or,
yeah.
or something. And then, wah,
The
wah, wah.
the gaslighting was so real from the beginning. And like
Mhm.
I remember being told to prepare candles, prepare sleeping bags, prepare canned foods. Like we really thought that was going to be the end. And I think this is a theme we're going to continue to see even throughout the rest of the prophecies. But I want to make sure that we bring up 2012 first because he was definitely giving the dates. I remember exactly being told, I have it written in my agenda that I still have the agendas from 2012, and I have the exact day written when it was supposed to be the end. And I remember Deacon Dane at the time giving a sermon where he's like, even if everyone leaves, on this day, I will still remain, with father, mother, da 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 da. And like they were definitely pushing this date. Everyone was convinced this was going to be the end. Even missionary Ron Ramos, I remember talking to him, and he was, even telling his family, he told me that he was like, I told him there's no way we're going past this date, and because it was an actual thing, it was a real thing, and they had the math, like Tony was, bringing up. It all had to do with the feast, and I think this is where Daniel Park took that same concept, and that's where he, got all the rest of these prophecies. But it started with the 2012. It was the 168 days from the seventh day of the 10th day of the seventh month according to the sacred calendar, the Day of Atonement, right? And so it was the Israel's calendar that they used. One month had 30 days, the other had 29 days, and so you took 168 days from the Day of Atonement all the way until the ceremony when the building of the sanctuary was done, the consecration, and it took a total of 168 days. Then he would say 168 days actually represents 168 years, because a day for a year prophecy. And so boom, you because remember they would say that.
Sometimes half the time.
Right. And so 168 days from atonement to the ceremony, but then they would say Day of Atonement spiritually happened in 1844, was the spiritual year of atonement, when truth was, allowed to come back little by little, truth of the Sabbath, truth of baptism. So 1844 plus 168 years lands exactly 2012. And so just like Moses was told in the wilderness, tell the Israelites no more offerings, we have more than enough, we were also going to hear the voice from Heavenly Mother come from the throne to fulfill the voice of Revelation, where she says, no more, no more offerings. 144,000 are found. They're the ones who compose the heavenly sanctuary. We're going to heaven. But then when it didn't happen, to Tony's point, we were kind of like, what the heck? And we were like lost. And I remember even during that time, they were calling it like the year of darkness, right? Like after that. That's why they called Jubilee the streak of light, because after 2012, we were like I feel like so many members left in 2012. And those of us who stayed, we were kind of like, well, kind of just going through the motions. I remember that's when the countermeasures came out,
Mhm.
because we didn't have anything to really, plant our flag on. We didn't have anything to put our hope in. And I think Daniel Park saw an opportunity 2 years later on the year of Jubilee. And maybe that can be before we get to that, if you guys want to bring something up about the 2012 thing.
I also heard, so I came in end of 2014. So I had heard talking about 2013 being like the sifting. Oh, now that the Jerusalem temple was built, now it's time to like sift and like checking if the temple's the
Inspection.
inspection time. And of course, those who left in 2012 because the world didn't end, it's like, oh, see, inspection, they were fake followers, fake believers.
That's so true. And they would tell us like, once a building is complete, you have to like make it shiny and like, you know, chisel out the hard edges. So that's what was happening is like we weren't totally ready yet. Our tabernacle wasn't completely, or our temple wasn't completely beautiful yet.
And it lead into, okay, if I remember right, it was the cry at midnight. So all the virgins were ready in 2012, but then he was a long time in coming and they fell asleep, which was 2014, right? Or 2013.
Oh, the
No,
stupid bridegroom, and he fell asleep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
yep. So there, all the virgins were ready in 2012, but then the bridegroom was a long time in coming, so then everyone fell asleep, right? So
Mhm.
it's inspection time, it's time to prepare your oil, but then the cry rang out at the year of Jubilee when they, even in Korea, Mother and all those virgins did an actual like thing at midnight.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
forgot
you just
about all
brought,
this. I
yeah,
haven't been thinking about this in forever.
yeah, it's crazy. You just brought back so much memory. I remember that video. I remember it was dark at one point, right? And then when they have all the lanterns lit and
Mhm.
they're swinging them,
We're
and
like prophecy fulfilled, but it's like
yeah,
they make the prophecy and then they make their own fulfillment.
yeah,
Yes, and it's so
yeah,
creepy how when you're indoctrinated, it all makes sense. You're like, oh yeah,
yeah.
2012, we were ready, but it was like, how would the bridegroom was a long time in coming be fulfilled if he didn't actually come? And like we get really bamboozled.
And it's like, how many times do you fall for the same trick? Because, it wasn't even the start of it. I mean, we could literally go back. We're not going to, but we could go back to 1988 and what happened with the prophecy of Jonah. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like they just repackage it. They repackage it. They hit you with another verse that kind of you can use to push their agenda forward, and they just run with it. And it's like every year. But I think that they hit the lottery. Well, Daniel Park did in 2014, especially with the Midwest. 2014, 2015, that was like that was some wild times. And maybe I think we can get into that next, the year of Jubilee. So how do you guys remember it?
I was
Maybe.
baptized. Yeah, I came in, and I think it's so funny to kind of think back because whenever I'd mention like I was baptized in the year of Jubilee, people would say, "Oh, 2014." And I was like, "No, 2015," because the way that the church or what it was being taught was kind of like it was supposed to extend. Like that was the year. So like it started, you know, Day of Atonement 2014, I guess you would say, and then it would technically be ending Day of Atonement 2015. And I was
Yep.
baptized April, so I mean, me personally, we were going to heaven, So there was um prophecy was like I would say like I wasn't in um Denver, right, with him, but the the leader I had, he definitely was influenced enough to give recommendations on behalf of people's life, college, babies, or whatever, So I can definitely say that we were influenced by the end of the times to want to give our lives to the church. So um, yeah, I I remember that. And then I can also mention that we weren't allowed to talk about it after a
Yeah.
few years. Yeah,
So secretive.
yeah, yeah.
What do you guys remember?
It was crazy. I was baptized October 2014, so that was technically the feast. Didn't realize it at that moment, but soon after, it was just hit the ground running. And I just thinking back to that time, I was very pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. I got pregnant November 2014. So this whole year Jubilee, I'm
Wow.
growing a baby. I'm thinking we're going to go to heaven. I'm preaching my heart out, bringing my, at the time, sister-in-law, best friend, everybody. I brought my mom at the time. It was so insane. We were in Denver. My leader in Cheyenne at the time was Deacon Isaac and Deaconess Lydia, who's my branch. And yeah, it was like every weekend, every Sunday, like education after education on the year of Jubilee and how everything points to the the slaves being set free, that we're going to be sent home. We're going home, which is our heaven. And it's, I mean, everything. 14 was Passover. We're going to be free. We're going to be forgiven and free. And then 2015 is, mother's being picketed. She's being spiritually crucified. Like education, hours long education. I remember there was this huge event I don't know if you guys remember, that we prepared for in the year of Jubilee, where multiple people got baptized at once in Denver. And I
You remember
saved
they
my,
built that big old like baptism where they could do all the baptisms at any time of the day, any time of night?
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember four leaders with baptism authority, including Daniel Park, were up there. And I saved my mom's baptism for that event, my ex-sister-in-law baptism for that event. Ton of Cheyenne members got baptized that exact day and waited to be baptized for that event. And it was this massive Passover celebration afterward. And my mom's sitting there cheersing her Passover wine. I'm like, I'm like, oh God. But it was insane. It was
They made a
intense.
video for that, right? I feel like they did that for the
Yeah.
video. Yeah.
They did.
That was in the multi-purpose room where we would have the educations. Yeah, I remember that. I was there. That was some wild stuff. It was all for show. Deacon Adam was up there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
Yeah,
wild that we're all there and I just know you guys now.
right?
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. Um, Tony, what do you remember? Like, do you remember like the beginning of Jubilee, how it started?
Yeah, and I just like that was like really the first time I kind of started struggling because I didn't really fully understand it. It's like we're supposed to go to heaven already, like every year Father's footsteps are getting closer, getting closer. And yeah, so but yeah, I just remember a lot about like the slaves being set free and how, it's a time of happiness and joy and but like I didn't really feel like that. I'm just like getting impatient, like okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Edgar. I was
No,
just
go
gonna
ahead,
say, I
Marissa.
just remembered obviously how it started was that mother proclaiming that first, like where she's in the room, like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that weird
Hmm.
announcement that she made.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
So
was weird.
it was every year in the beginning of the year, we would get Mother's New Year message. And so in the year 2014, the New Year message the video that was sent to every church was the year of Jubilee, right? But it was really, she was, it was Happy New Year, this 2014. And then she gets to, this is 2014 is actually a prophetical year. It's the year of Jubilee, it's the 50th year of the Church of God. But if you remember, from January until the fall time, nothing happened. I mean, it was like numbers were down, nothing productive was going on in the church. And no one talked about Jubilee. Nobody. I 100% remember nobody was talking about Jubilee. It wasn't until we got a phone call. And it's like Daniel Park is telling everybody, all the gospel workers need to go to Denver. It's like an emergency. We need to go. And when we get there and we're having this education, the education is basically a rebuking. And it's like, you guys didn't understand what mother was saying through that video. Jesus spoke in parables, and only his true children understood, while the rest of the world didn't understand. That's happening in Zion right now. Mother was also speaking in parables. She mentioned this is a prophetical year, and everyone else, it went one ear and out the other. But of course, Daniel Park, he understood the prophetic words of God, and now he's sharing them with us. We need to wake up. And so that's when he starts through the feast. And I remember that was like, to me, that was like the most convincing. I think to me it made more sense than even 2012. Well, I don't know. It's so hard. I think it all made sense to me, but it's just the way that he had it all planned out. This dude literally had everything in order from the beginning. Like, so for instance, we're because I know there's going to be World Mission Society members watching this, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? The year of Jubilee and Mother is the Christ. It all stems from the feast. So in the World Mission Society, you're taught the seven feasts is the shadow, and the reality is Jesus, right? So the shadow of the feast is, the Israelites come out of Egypt through Passover, unleavened bread, the feast, tabernacles, enter Canaan. Reality is a sinful world, and Jesus worked through the cross, 14, 15, age of the Son, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, to eventually Feast of Tabernacles, which will lead you to heaven. But Daniel Park said, no, that's not good enough. We need to bump it up a level. And he said, I remember that was the first time I heard it, and I was like, that's so clever. He said, there's a shadow, there's a reality, but there's also a completion. And he said the completion is going to be done through Heavenly Mother, because she's the last Christ, right? She's the one that's going to fulfill mission of Elijah. And so she's the one that has to fulfill the feast, just like Jesus fulfilled it 2,000 years ago. So how did the feast start? Well, it has to have a beginning point, right? Zero, right? So how'd he play off of that? The year 2000. So he said the year 2000 Y2K was like a reset. And then he brought it. I remember he had
Yeah.
videos, he had slides, he had all types of things that he would bring up, where it was basically trying to take us through this timeline to get us to 2014. And so basically 2014 is Passover, but it's connected to 15 as well, because unleavened bread. So you have the Passover, and then the suffering, and like Marissa was saying, the crucifixion. And but basically during this time, like, he was like making all types of prophecies up, like, the Melchizedek is mother, the King David is mother. He was bringing up like Zhang's baptism day, and like lighting it up with 70, 73, the reign of David, and like all kinds of numbers, and like
All the
it's
temples,
the
all the
temples. He was
Zerubbabel.
connecting everything. Like, oh my God, it was so crazy. I mean, I
And it
don't, do
was
you guys
so
want? Yeah.
overlapping that it was like so like you can barely even keep track with your brain how he had it so to a T, so overlapped. Because people like maybe not in the WMSCOG might be like, that's a bunch of horse crap. But actually, like, which it is, but like the way, if it's like one prophecy, maybe not. But when he like morphs all of the freaking studies we had already known,
Mhm.
where it's like the seven-day churches or like
Mhm.
the temples, right? All what were they? The Nehemiah temple, the Zerubbabel temple, the bridegroom, yeah, the bridegroom coming, like all these different biblical prophecies and how it lined up with the dates of the history of the World Mission Society Church of God, Mother's birthday. It's like it.
So were the other churches not learning that stuff, like about the temples and the seven churches and everything?
Well, they did learn about like the seven churches, 6 day creations. They did, but I think it was different because I know it was different. I've talked to missionaries that's left the church, and they know about the 6 day creation, the temples, and all of that, but they don't know how to connect it to Zhang Gil Jah.
And
And I think
Jubilee.
that's what Daniel Park, like, he went above and beyond to show. See, what I'm actually showing you guys, the way I can prove that it's real is because this year connects to all the other prophecies.
And the
Now,
2300,
yeah,
that one too.
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
2,300 days and night, yeah, everything. Like, he was just on it, and I think that during that time, like, it made people like, so that's, to your guys' point, when we're talking about the ceremony, like the award ceremony was a result of the year of Jubilee, and how members were so pumped up. Like, I remember, I want to hear what you guys, how it was in your location, but like in our location in Wichita, man, we were like, so first we bought this bus, And when you guys seen Pimp My Ride, like, like they literally like I wouldn't even say it was pimped out. They colted out this ride because they gutted the inside, built a baptism area in there and a dressing room in the back. And now looking back at it,
Mm.
it's so embarrassing because we would go preaching and stop this huge bus at Walmart's, lead people into this bus with like customers like kind of looking what's going on. Next thing you know, water's dripping down from the
Singing
bottom
the
of the bus.
baptism song in the
Oh my
parking lot.
god. It was like wild. And like but yeah, that's what we were doing, during that time. And I remember we went, and because we were with Missionary Michael, and if you guys know Missionary Michael, he's intense. This guy, he was taking us everywhere. I mean, we went to Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma. We were just going everywhere, and we had a lot of baptisms. There was a lot of competition during that year. Remember, we had the cops called on us. We had the FBI who went to the church in Wichita. That's actually where that I don't know if you guys remember hearing that instance that there was like a bomb, and the FBI was looking for a bomb, preaching, and we were obviously telling everybody the world was going to end, World War III was coming, and we were telling people, oh, it's coming through thermonuclear war, and all these bombs are going to be set off, and so anyway, it got misinterpreted somehow. Next thing you know, here comes the FBI coming knocking on our door. And I lived in Zion at the time. I was freaked out. Like, they came, they looked around, they met with a missionary, and then after they left, like they had us like looking for, they possibly tapped the Zion. And like it was crazy because right after that, we went short-term preaching somewhere, and that's not even it had never happened to us. The first 5 minutes we get out of the car after leaving the city, we get out of the car to go preach, and we got immediately police was there. So it's like the FBI was already following us after that. And so that's where that came from. And the human trafficking came from the drive-by preaching we were doing in missionaries van. Because we're just, I can see how in the people's eyes they were like, these people are kidnapping people, because we'd get, be yelling at people walking down the street, or one of us would jump out of a moving van like, hey, have you heard of God the Mother? World War III is coming, and try to convince them to get in the van. And it would work sometimes. So I can see how creepy that is, looking back at it. But yeah, wild times. But Tony, like, what do you remember like about the year of Jubilee, or like anything you want to mention about like Pastor Daniel Park?
Well, like, you're mentioning that time because I remember a lot of because it was leading up to that awards ceremony, right?
Yeah,
So I was sort of like kind of like dwindling away during that time, but I was still like pity allowed to come to the party. Um, and I remember I was thinking about Marissa, how you said like it was so amazing how that was put together, but you know, Daniel Park, yes, he did a lot of that, but really behind the scenes, you guys know it's the workers that are really doing like the messy work, the dirty work, like putting everything together and all that. Um, and like being exhausted and doing all the meetings and all that stuff. Um, so anyway, I was allowed to come to that award ceremony, but like I was so like shunned, kind of by Daniel Park and the other members. But I also remember thinking like being so encouraged by that ceremony too, seeing all the people preaching and all the people getting awards and getting baptized. But they do like, but if you're not, in their good graces, they just really have a way to make you feel so terrible, like, look,
yeah,
you're not the one getting the award. And I was a deaconess, so it was very like shameful, like, wow, even a deaconess can, be so sinful, or even a deaconess may not get a preaching award. So it was like in that time, I was more like on the wrong side of the prophecy, in their eyes. But that was so hurtful, and like to be shunned by him was so hurtful. Like of course he's always going to be nice to your face, like, oh, we miss you. How are you? How's the family? Blah blah blah. But like you can feel in the way he is with you that he's so disappointed in you, and so like when you're trying to leave, you're also like also like trying to avoid him. Like after service and stuff, you don't want to see him. You don't want to be greeted by him because you're just gonna feel so guilty. But I don't know. I was just thinking about the award ceremony, how for some people it was so encouraging. And then like I know like for me and Chad was also there and then feeling like we weren't allowed to sit at the table with them. We weren't allowed to sit, with like the other deacon and deaconesses. We had to like, sit with the regular members. So I don't know. It's just so stupid. But it hurts you like so it hurts you so deeply because that's somebody that you love so much, and people
For
that you
sure.
love so much.
I have a question for you, Tony. Like, what was your last impressions of Daniel Park? Like, were you there when he got transferred, or were you already out before he
I was
even left?
already out.
So, what's your last memory of him? And then, because I know you got to get going soon, I also want to ask you if you had something, if you could say something to him, what would it be?
Oh man, that's really complicated. I've been thinking about him so much lately. It's so complicated, like I was so young when I met him, and then I feel like he was with me in so many pivotal moments. He's the one that married me and my husband and baptized my son and was there when my son was born. So like I have so many great memories of him. But he was getting so strict, like he was becoming so strict and so I mean he was always strict, but I don't know. It's like what could I say to him? I don't know. I just want him to be careful. I feel so deeply worried about him and his mental state. And also, like, thinking about it's not just him, it's almost like a little army, because as you guys know, he's gathered up his favorite leaders that he's come across over the years. So, missionaries of the WMSCOG and deaconesses and deacons and church leaders. And so, all of them together is a force. You guys know that is a force because I'm sure he's diagnosable something, narcissistic or I don't know. Um, so many things that he could probably be diagnosed with, but he's powerful and he also has people that are almost at the same level powerful as him with the same charisma um, and so I'm worried. And then when we think about all the dates that he's proclaimed before, and then if you're saying that he already has another date for 2025, and then he'll probably have more dates, and then it's like, what is he doing to the people along the way? They're probably not sleeping well, not eating well. So I just worry about them and I just hope that they're not, putting themselves in danger and others.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's very well said. Um, I guess we can finally get to the part where we haven't even touched on him, what actually caused him to leave, like
Hmm.
how all that played out, and then we'll finish up with what he's doing now. But does any of you want to kind of explain like how he ended up, you know, because it's not he left the WMSCOG and started his own church in America. No, no, no.
Hmm.
He got shipped out to Australia, so there's a lot of things that happened during that time. Go ahead, Marissa.
I want to mention too, like really quick, 2014, 2015 was huge. And then obviously we had the disappointment that we weren't going to heaven after the year of Jubilee. But then it was 2016, after Passover, 2014, spiritual unleavened bread, 2015, 2016 was the third year, right? One, two, three, the resurrection where our faith needs to resurrect. And then which was like 2016 to 2017, I believe. 2018, he came up with all these crazy prophecies that it's been 100 years from the birth of An Sang Hong 20 or 1918 to 2018, where even in the church, you are either Isaac or you're Ishmael, and so we were all on edge back then. I don't want to be Ishmael. I don't want to be a child of the flesh, and so he had us locked. Oh yeah, 2017. 2016, 2017 was also like the year that it was like preached to the 7 billion people at that time and establish house churches. And that's, I know, when like around Amy, when Amy was sent out, I was sent out to Laramie to do a house church. He had us on the edge of our seat for years. And all this time, we've given up our entire life, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and all of a sudden, which leads us to like the next discussion was he had to go because he all this time he was teaching us wrong, which is funny because I remember Deacon Isaac and even I think Daniel Park himself mentioned that other leaders in other regions were getting mad at Daniel Park because people wanted to move from their region to Daniel Park because they felt if they weren't learning what we were learning, they weren't going to make it to heaven. And that was a problem for the WMSCOG, which is worldwide. But even at that time, there were pastors getting mad at Daniel Park. And someone said General Pastor backed up Daniel Park and was like, can you do math? It is the year Jubilee. Like what he's preaching is correct. But then at one point, it wasn't. And, it was no longer mother said, Pastor Daniel Park broke the news to us that like throw away your notes and like on song, father is King David, father is Elijah, father is Melchizedek, not mother. And all the children in the World Mission Society Church of God are Isaac, not Ishmael. Some
Daniel
aren't
Park
Ishmael.
told you guys that?
Yep.
So he said now he corrected himself and then he said throw away all your notes.
After, right? This is Marissa, you're speaking specifically about after we were asked, right? After the whole situation for teaching that, or was this before?
This
What
was
do you?
like I feel like wasn't it like around 2018? After all
Okay.
these years, right? He
Okay.
he had mentioned like he's got to stop. Was it 2018 or
Yeah,
was it?
right. So he taught that there was a difference in the church, but then there was a moment when general pastor or head office, God the Mother, called and said, "Don't
Yeah,
teach that way."
that
So
was
then,
2018.
so then after that, yes, he corrected himself and said, "Everyone in the church is Isaac." Mhm.
Yeah. And I remember even before then, because they asked us to turn our things in even during the year of Jubilee, like 2015, end of 2015, 2016, they asked us to turn our stuff in. And then they did it again, but the second time it came from head office. The first time, because Daniel Park was warned multiple times before he ended up getting, shipped out. He didn't get the memo and he kept doing it because I remember directly, I think I remember vividly because I was with my cousin at the time, and I remember it was a big deal to us when Zane called him and was like, "Hey, Daniel Park's not a false prophet, but you got to stop preaching this. Like what he's preaching is wrong." But he's not a false prophet. And so we're like, okay, well, we can deal with that. So he just got it a little bit wrong. But Mother is saying that he's not a, false prophet. And but then he continued, and I remember, like you guys were saying, he was definitely told, stop, you have to stop this. But then, what ended up happening was he was still teaching his right hand people, and I remember they were then calling, the gospel workers, because we'd get phone calls like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, from missionary Michael, and he would be studying with us what he learned from Daniel Park in the middle of the night. So it was all on the DL, you know what I mean? And just wild times.
Yeah, but then I at some point he got all of a sudden had to go to Australia. And I thought at that time everything was like dandy. Like, okay, I didn't know overseers were supposed to get swapped after so long, and we knew he was in Denver for years, multiple years. So, okay, it's his time to go to Australia. That was really hard for everyone, I think, because we were all like, everyone who had ever been in Denver, he was our only overseer. So I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal, like, okay, finally he's got to be switched out.
Mhm. I have a
Yeah.
question because the I was in Colorado Springs, right? So we had it was an independent church. So we had our own overseers. So technically we didn't have to be associated with Denver for every education or so on. Um, but at that time, it was David and Ceci, and they were like Daniel's right hand man, the two of them. And so we were there, twice a month, every education during the week. Like it was we worked a lot with Denver while those overseers were there. But once they were transferred, which they were also transferred at the same time Daniel Park was. So not only just Daniel Park, but I remember many overseers were kind of moved around. Um, but we didn't go to Denver when the new overseers came anymore. We were not like, we were not, I don't remember at all actually until the third ones that I had. So my question is like, did you guys still go to Denver like as often as when Daniel Park was here than compared to when he left? No.
Not us, not in Wichita.
We did a little bit. I wouldn't say as often because we were there so much, but Cheyenne is at the bottom of Wyoming. So we're really an hour and a half away from Denver, you know? So it's like easy for us. Like it was like kind of like Denver is we have joint worship once a month. So like we still went regularly, but it was nowhere near as intense.
Daniel Park always wanted the churches there, like almost every Sabbath day. And he would call like Thursday or Friday and be like, "Hey, you have to be here for morning service." Or like a feast, after 5 a.m., then you have to rush to Denver. That was so annoying. I think he liked having like the pews filled. He liked having everybody there at one time. And also probably so that he could teach, his whatever prophecy he had for the time to everybody.
For sure.
Exactly.
That man always had a prophecy. Always at the I remember there were so many times I was like about ready to leave. I was about done with the church, burned out. Then he'd just come in and slip in another prophecy. And there I was selling my stuff again, quitting my jobs and going all in. It was like it's so crazy. This man had those prophecies on a string like a yo-yo, like and he's still doing it. Um but which leads us to him getting, once he finally got caught and they had enough, they ship him out to Australia. This was 2018, 2019, right? He gets shipped off to Australia. And the funny thing about Australia, because we didn't really know, I mean, we heard a little bit, through the grapevine. There was a few people that shared information with us. Like I know for a fact, missionary Michael kept in contact with him. I also heard Brandon kept in contact with him, but I'm sure that, stopped. But so he was communicating with them, but it wasn't until I came out and started speaking out, and then made the email, and I started getting a few emails from people in Australia. And that's what shocked me, because they were reaching out, just talking about regular questions, and I'm like, by the way, have you heard of Pastor Daniel Park? And there it's like, really? Like, you know him too? Where do I begin? This guy is crazy. And they just start going off. Same experience. It's like when he got here, it was kind of like smooth sailing at first, but then he starts going into the prophecies like no one's ever done here in Australia. He's pumped everybody up, and now there's like this, that started bringing a lot of attention to the church. Then problems started coming in, and there was like this big deal. I heard from two different people there was like some kind of scandal in the church. Pastor Park was involved in some way, but again, the WMS is so secretive, so that they didn't fully understand what happened. They just know there was a scandal in the church involving Daniel Park, and that he was out. And so once he was out, I was asking, like, I was trying to find out that information. I heard he got demoted. Well, then that's where we pick up, here in the United. All of a sudden, he gets demoted, and where does he pop back up?
Denver.
Midwest, yeah.
Well, what's crazy is I think it's worth mentioning. I remember I think it was 2022, in somewhere in between 2021 and 2023. We were called down to Denver. We all had to hand our phones in, and it was only three of us sisters from Cheyenne, but it was so random select people who were up in the multipurpose room while Pastor George is the overseer and currently is here in Wheat Ridge in Colorado. So all this time from when he got shipped off to Australia and got kicked out, even in Australia, and was told to keep home worship because he wouldn't cut it out. There's so many people in Wheat Ridge who's continuously studying Daniel Park stuff and never let it go, even though we were told several times to let it go. And so I remember leaders, one of my leaders too, who, you know, I heard follows him now. He's a deacon. He was teaching certain things in Cheyenne too in like 2021, 2022. And people didn't let it go, right? People are still teaching it on the low and saying that Pastor John is too, like, he was the first pastor who came after Daniel Park, and they're like, he's too easy. And like, it's just like, we went from everything to nothing. Now it's like sermon book, and like, there's nothing to grasp onto. And then after him, it was Pastor George Carrera, who's there right now. And everyone, not everyone, but so many people in Denver, Cheyenne were calling him like a false prophet, that he's like Babylonian, and Daniel Park had it right. So there's already like been this division, long-standing division in Zion long after Daniel Park's in Australia and keeping home worship. And so in 2023, 2022, we were called to that room, turned our phones in. Mother met with us on a Zoom call and said directly that Pastor Daniel Park is keeping home worship, that he was told he needed to repent, that we cannot, if we want to go to like, we cannot believe, we need to erase everything from our mind. So I don't even think at that point she was saying he was a false prophet, but for sure she was like, you need to erase everything from your mind. He's not okay. He's doing home worship and repenting, and throw everything away, which you already should have by this time, but in your mind. And still people didn't,
How
I
as
did
we
they
have
know.
react to that? Were they like crying and stuff? I just imagine that would be so shocking.
Yeah, yeah, somewhere. But Toni, by that time, we were already told several times to throw it away and knock it off. So this was 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. We like, so by this time, it was like a direct call from her on Zoom, translated to us by a translator, that he's not okay. Like, you need to erase it from your mind. Do not teach it anymore. Do not think it. Do not believe it. He's doing home worship. Like, and when you're put on home worship, like, you're in trouble by God. And Daniel Park is in trouble by God and doing home worship in Australia. That's the last we knew. So, like, Toni, by that time, we were already told several times since 2018 to knock it off.
That's wild.
but
And
I want to piggyback on that because
You guys, I'm so, so sorry, but I
oh
have
yeah,
to.
yeah.
But can we do it again sometime?
Yeah,
yes.
let's do it again. Part two. Part
I can't
two.
wait to hear the end. I'm
Okay.
excited.
Have a good
Bye,
night, Toni.
Toni.
Bye.
So I wanted to piggyback off that because I feel like the members, when the phone call was given, how many of the members who were also put on home worship with Daniel Park were able to hear that record or hear that. And
No.
so they're kept in that same, they're using, I feel like they're using that, right? They haven't heard her say it, so um they
Yeah,
cannot go.
thank you, Amy. I'm sorry, that's worth pointing out because how many members heard it? What's so strange, Amy, is when I remember we were called to Wheat Ridge, it was like a random weekday night. It was me and two other sisters from my Zion, so three. And then think that's the same way from the other Zions, as well as Wheat Ridge is in itself. So, Wheat Ridge Zion, the upstairs multi-purpose where all the kids sanctuary, that one,
Oh yeah.
and how it's divided in half.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Only that many people were there to hear that message from Mother. No one told us that it was an important message and that we'd be hearing directly from Mother. Everything's so secretive. So I remember my sister-in-law at the time was like, if I would have known it was like we were hearing something like that from Mother, I would have went. And you would think if it's that important, every Zion, the main church and all the branch churches who were taught by Daniel Park, which was so many of us, would all hear that together. But then why was it only three of us sisters who chose, oh, I'll go because I'm just going to be dedicated, even though I don't even know what it's for, yet it's such an important message from Mother herself saying, stop, he's keeping home worship. And then they just get to hear it from us. Oh, and like, I don't even know if we were supposed to tell anybody because we turned our phones in and everything. No notes, we turned our phones in. So you're right.
That's
If it was
wild.
such an important message and that really she wants everyone to know that and to hear it from her directly, why wasn't it made known and then everybody hear it from her?
Mhm. Yeah, I heard it from somebody who was put on house worship, and so they didn't hear the message, but they were explained to by the leader at the time, you know, what explained to, why are you on home worship? What do you have to do to get off home worship, right? So yeah, I think that um, for some members it might be okay, to just hear a leader say that and be okay. But I feel that many members who are following Daniel Park don't have confidence, or they don't depend or trust leadership. I think, which is similar to us as we leave the World Mission Society in general. I think those feelings of understanding there is a there's a flaw in leadership um, has to do with the aspect of a cult. And I think that these members realized that, but yet they're being drawn to another group with the expectation or the answers being given to them that this is that's not going to happen here, you know. Um, but I want to reiterate what I think Toni and maybe you guys mentioned about what they're doing. They're probably not sleeping. They're probably dedicating all their money. Um, I'm sure there's still no boundaries. So the same feelings that you had within the organization of the World Mission Society, it's not going to change. It's going to happen, you know. But I think that these members, they're instead of seeing those red flags, they'd rather just say, "Well, I didn't hear God the Mother say it," you know. And like you mentioned, why is she not saying it to a whole congregation or even publicly? You know, your members mean that much to you. Well, I think that stating something publicly so that everyone could see and have access to it would be important, you know? So, yeah.
I feel like that's a great point that they should do that. So WMSCOG, since I obviously watched the content, think about that. We're giving you nuggets and it almost feels weird saying it. Like it's not about taking down. They're both wrong. I feel like I like Daniel Park more than I'll ever like General Pastor, but the reason why I won't condone what Daniel Park's doing is not because of Daniel Park, but it's because of the members that he's influencing, and because that's not right for them what they're going through. We lived it. We lived through being lost in the sauce with Daniel Park. We know what's going on right now. The scary part is you could say in a sense Daniel Park was had to dial it back a little bit. He was, being controlled in the WMS, even if he still broke out of that from time to time, but he still had to dial it back at times. And now he ain't got nobody to tell him anything. So he's cranking it The prophecies, I can just imagine if members that have joined Daniel Park's church, which by the way, that oh, I think
I
we
don't even think
skipped
we
this
mentioned
part.
that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
didn't
we
even mention it. So matter of fact, Marissa, go ahead, take it away. Introduce his lovely church.
okay. So, yeah, so basically he was doing home worship, supposedly repenting, all we knew, in Australia. Next thing we know, he comes back to America where his faithful followers have always been, his missionaries, leaders that have been with him since day one and never left him. As we know, there's been the members who have studied his prophecies this whole entire time. So all of a sudden, he pops back up in the Midwest and establishes his church. So his church is called the New Jerusalem Church of God. And in his church, they believe in Heavenly Mother still. But it's, I don't even know what we want to say, but the way they pray is in the name of Zhang Gil Jah. You're baptized. Okay, so if you are baptized in the World Mission Society Church of God in the name of Christ on Sang Hong, you need to be rebaptized in Daniel Park's church in the name of Zhang Gil Jah. And the things they're studying right now is I don't even know what we want to say about, how the WMSCOG members are according to the prophecy of like Jacob and Esau.
Yeah.
Do we want to go there?
Yeah, let's go there. I mean, I feel like we're already there. We might as well, finish off, you know what I mean? What to give also the WMSCOG an insight of what is being taught.
Mhm.
Again, for the sake of the members that have joined Daniel Park's church. Again, don't take this personal, Daniel Park, but you're wrong, bro. And ultimately we don't want the people to leave one call. As much as it hurts me to say this, because I want people to leave the WMSCOG,
Right.
but to join Daniel Park is to join this basically the same crap. You know what I mean? It's just it's under the same umbrella, just repackaged a different way. Um, so I think it's important that we talk about it. But to Marissa's point, they're baptizing people in the name of Zhang Gil Jah. They're concluding their prayers in the name of Zhang Gil Jah. They've added the prayer of our wishes. They've added Zhang Gil Jah's name to the prayer of our wishes. I mean, and it's not when you think of those who know Daniel Park and his teaching, it's not too far from what he was already doing. He was already proclaiming her to be the Christ. And like I said, I mean, I'll give him that. If you gave me General Pastor in a room and Daniel Park in a room, the same room, who could convince somebody better that Zhang Gil Jah is God the Mother? Hands down, Daniel Park. General Pastor, if it's somebody that knows a little bit, that he's going to be laughed at, or worse, the person's going to fall asleep while he's teaching them that. You know what I mean? Daniel Park's not only going to make you believe in Zhang Gil Jah, he's probably going to make you leave your job, your life, and then just follow him that same day. That's how good this guy is, right? So let's just call a spade. But let's talk about the prophecies that he's pushing now.
Yeah, and I
Do
think I think it's worth mentioning too that like so with this being said, there's an uproar happening in the World Missions Society Church of God. There's a huge uproar, obviously, now that he has his church. Members are being plucked out by the minute. From Denver, Texas, even some in Cheyenne. And now the Church of God is scrambling. And now there's being phone calls from others saying he's now a false prophet, telling the
yeah.
church directly he's a false prophet, which Edgar was just saying a couple years back. She's saying he's a true prophet, he just got it wrong. Now
Mm.
he's a false prophet. Do not follow his church. Well, the members who already left to follow him aren't hearing this. They
Yeah.
don't know. They think
Right.
it's under a whole nother umbrella. So I don't know, Amy, do you want to explain the Esau Jacob?
Oh, the Rebecca, Jacob
Yeah.
and yeah. So Oh, I guess this is where it gets a little bit weird, right? Because, like you said, the members, they didn't hear it. So Zhang is giving these instructions about, right? Like, don't follow him. His name's been blotted out of the book of life. Anyone who follows him, their name's being blotted out of the book of life. So if you heard that from who you believed is God, then I mean the book of life is that's just as important as Passover, right? You preach, your name's brighter, then you don't want it blotted is the thing. You could dim it, but don't blot it, right? Like that's your goal in there. So um oh um so the members are following him, but they're being told that Daniel Park is telling them that Zhang is approving this. So the ones who think that they're in this church with Daniel Park, um, Daniel Park is telling them, right? Like, this is approved. This is God's prophecy. And so the way it's kind of being spun off is based off the story about Rebecca, because Rebecca had two sons, right? Jacob and Esau. So Esau, he stayed at home with his mother, right? He was fed, but he wasn't God's favorite. He wasn't God's chosen, right? He wasn't the one who received the blessing. But what about Jacob? Jacob, he was sent off, right? He was even sent off. And on his way, when he was sent off, he wrestled with God in the wilderness. And um, so that means he went through struggles, right? He's away from Rebecca, right? So from my from what I remember, Rebecca was also looked at as a prophetic figure to represent God the Mother. So meaning God the Mother, she has two different children, Jacob and Esau, right? Or um, the one who's receiving the inheritance and the one who rejected the inheritance, right? So, in the perspective of the Church of Daniel Park, they view themselves as like Jacob, because who told Jacob to leave? It was Rebecca. So, um, in the perspective of the family, right? Jacob isn't home with his mom. He isn't receiving the blessing. He's out getting work. He's enduring hardship. So in the same way, those who are following Daniel Park, they're not with God the Mother, right? They're not seen with her, but who's who was already given the blessing, right?
Jacob. He was the chosen, the one who got the inheritance, even though it was supposed to be Esau, which is the WMSCOG.
Right. So, or Daniel, or general pastor, I think
Yeah.
specifically. I think that what Daniel Park isn't saying, the World Mission Society, right? Because technically still Zong is there, but he's saying general pastor. So there seems to be definitely some um, confrontation in regards to who's fulfilling that prophecy. And I think Daniel Park is being forceful to show that he and his people are fulfilling it. But I want to mention that when it they kind of hold to the Jacob being having to go through trials when he wrestled with God, and they also think that they're enduring trials by being kicked out of the World Mission Society. So I can definitely see how Daniel Park is taking what we all any story in the Bible, I guarantee you he can take and make it relatable to what you're going through. Is he picking everything in the story? No. Is he talking about the blessing correctly? No. But That's not what you're focused on in that moment. You're trying to rationalize why you were told that you're not allowed to come back here for preaching about how God the Mother exists in the Bible. You're logically trying to come up with that. So in their minds and explanation, it only makes sense that they're they're the prophesied ones to teach these things. So these prophecies that we were taught, right? King David. I mean, all 50 subjects. Passover, at the end of it, what did we learn how to teach at the end? How God the
Mother.
Mother fulfilled it. Yeah. She was on tree of life. Every single one we
Yep.
relearned how to show that she fulfilled it. They're doing that. That's the doctrine difference, and they think that that's what they're fulfilling. So when they're being told by the World Mission Society not to preach that, then they think that that is against God's will. So if a leader is telling them not to preach that God the Mother is the Christ, then they're thinking that leader is a false prophet, right? Or such. So they're justifying
Well, and there's been so many
that.
confusing things where like it was like Mother told Daniel Park, like it's just not the time. Like, don't talk like that yet. And it's like, so really you get really twisted in your mind because you're like, oh, this is truth, and like only the chosen would know this. So I have to keep quiet. I have special knowledge. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it's like special. And it's like, they use the secrets of the kingdom of heaven verse a lot. Like it's been given to you and not to them. We already knew that from like the outside of WMSCOG. It's been given to you, Church of God, not them. But even inside, it's like it's been given to you, certain gospel workers, and not them. And now even more in, like you said, Amy, in Daniel Park's church, it's like it's been given to you and not to the rest of those who are still in the World Mission Society Church of God. And it makes sense to them. And I think it would make sense to us too with everything we learned how, because we already knew it was like Sarah and Abraham had Isaac and Ishmael and we are Isaac, but now go another family forward and uh Rebecca and Isaac. Isaac is Christ, father, Rebecca being mother, and then the two, Jacob and Esau, they're twins. It looks like they're from the same family. World Mission Society Church of God, New Jerusalem Church of God. Looks they have the same father and mother, but which one is going to have the inheritance? Which one is going to enter the kingdom of heaven? Jacob. But it doesn't look like it because Jacob had to go work for what, Laban or whatever, his uncle.
Yeah.
So that's why Daniel Park, all of them are cast away, and mother secretly telling them, you're the chosen Daniel Park and your followers. General pastors over here, Esau was supposed to gain the inheritance, but will not. And I could see how being a Daniel Park, like following all his prophecies all these years, how that would like, because at first I was like, how are they following Mother, being baptized in her name, praying in her name, prayer wishes in her name, but she's not even there and she doesn't condone it. Well,
Mhm.
they don't know she doesn't condone it. They're being told on the low, she's like, yeah, you guys are Jacob.
And on top of that, like just hearing that, you can see how again how clever Daniel Park is. He's covering all grounds because to Marissa's point, like how would they don't know what she's saying, right? And so they have to justify these things, but the Daniel Park already did it for them. He made it very easy, right? And he's using the Bible to do it. And that's where it gets dangerous because what he ends up doing is that I had the same question when I heard all this. I was like, how are they following him? Yet you have Zhang Gil Jah, you know what I mean, calling people and telling them directly, like, don't follow this man. Why are they still doing it? Right? Because you have to think that even if they don't know, they're being told by members, you know what I mean, in the church that because they're in contact with members because they're trying to pluck them out, like you guys were saying. So they're definitely being told that Mother's saying, don't go with him, right? So then how is he convincing them? That was the biggest question to what Amy was saying. That's the key. The key is they have to make her a liar, essentially. But if you do it with prophecy, it doesn't seem so bad because you're not looking at it as a lie, but you're looking at it as prophecy through the lens of prophecy. So Rebecca, right there, the mother, she made she heard Isaac come up with, when Isaac was on his deathbed, he was going to give the birthright to to his firstborn,
Esau.
right, which was Esau. But when Rebecca overheard him, saying that, like, prepare a nice meal for me, and so I can give the birthright over to you, what did Rebecca do? She heard it and told Jacob in secret. And what did she tell him? I'm gonna help you prepare the meal, and you're gonna act like your brother so that you can get the blessing. In other words,
Which is
you're
deceptive.
lying, deception. So that he's so smart. He literally found a story that matches, what he's doing. And so by doing that, now the members are like, oh, okay, this makes sense through biblical prophecy. So it's okay for mother to do that because she's trying to give him the blessing. And so, like what Amy was saying, even though in the way they preach, it's so convincing in the eyes of the world, in this case, in the eyes of the WMS, who has the blessing?
They do.
They do. But actually, the one who holds the blessing is who? Esau. And even though everyone is looking at Esau like he's an outcast, like he's no one, like he's,
Jacob.
doing his own thing, or Jacob, he's actually the one who's the child of promise. And so it's convincing, and I can see why the members would follow that. But again, to Amy's point, they don't ever go to the full context with none of these things. And I mean, we could do this maybe at another time, but like, it's really sad to me how they put so much trust in these people, and they claim to, like, oh, we have this profound understanding of the scriptures, yet the same scriptures they are professing to know and understand on a higher level than everyone else, they actually have no idea what it's actually saying. If you continue to read, what would my question, if Daniel Park's followers or Daniel Park is ever watches this, what will you say to when you continue to read the story? Jacob and Esau reunite, they hug each other, kiss each other, and they even Esau says, Jacob's like, what about these kids you got? Oh, the God blessed me. And they're having a good old time. So does that mean Daniel Park and General Pastor are gonna patch? I bet he's not gonna say that,
Right.
right? And so all these prophecies that they have, it's totally dependent on you not reading the context. All this stems from the fees from Jubilee. Jubilee should have never even have been taken out of that type of context, because Jubilee is supposed, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, it's a proclamation to physically release the Israelites from bondage, right? From when they owe someone anything. And spiritually, Jesus did fulfill it. But how? By setting slaves free physically? No, by forgiving them of their sins, releasing them from sin. As far as I know, Christianity has always taught that was accomplished 2,000 years ago, once and for all. So where does that
Right.
lead us to 2014 and 2015? It makes no sense. And again, it goes back to the point where he capitalizes on people not thinking outside of the scope, the lenses through what he's already giving you, his prophecy. And so I just hope that the members that are watching this, like, ask yourselves, you guys, obviously the members that are following him have been with him for multiple years. How many times has he said, this is it, this is the year? He was saying this in California. He was saying this in Colorado. For God's sake, he was saying it in Australia. And then he comes, like, at this point, you guys have to ask yourselves, like, are you guys willing to give up your, I mean, Zhang Gil Jah to the WMS, well, no, to the New Jerusalem. It feels weird saying that to the New Jerusalem Church of God members that could be watching this. Do you know Zhang Gil Jah said that if you guys follow him, she would erase your names from the book of life? At this point, would you rather follow him, even as convincing as he is, as cunning as he is, as smart as he is? I thought you were in it for Zhang. I thought she was the one you follow. At least be honest with yourself. I want you guys to think critically. Are you really following Zhang, or is your allegiance more with Daniel Park? I think, if you really think about it, these members are really following Pastor Daniel Park because she's come. And if they say, oh, well, yeah, but look, Rebecca lied and she lied at that point. Well, like we brought up earlier in this conversation, Zhang Gil Jah had called Daniel Park a true prophet before, right? That he didn't, that he wasn't a false prophet, but he just got it wrong. And then all of a sudden now he never was. That's a contradiction. You know what I mean? That's a contradiction. And so, I don't know. I
And
just go ahead, Marissa.
I think it's sad too, like we were talking about. I want to point out again, like, the members who are inside the New Jerusalem Church of God, they don't want to trust leaders and members who tell them, Mother's telling you guys not to follow him. He's a false prophet. He's blotted out of the book of life. You'll be blotted out of the book of life. They don't want to trust it unless they hear it directly from her. And I feel like that's from all the spiritual abuse we've all already faced because we've had so many things happen to us, but whose fault was it? Mothers? General
Never.
pastors? It was
Yeah.
always a leader. They were false. They were wrong. They were a sinner. So we already have a problem trusting leaders because it's, oh, they were put there for father and mother. So do I trust them 100% or don't because they keep making mistakes and spiritually abusing everyone? So your Zhang Gil Jah, you, World Mission Society Church of God, your members are being plucked out, and you must not care about them that much because they don't know. They really believe in you. They're being baptized in your name. They're praying to you, yet they don't really know that you don't want them there. They don't trust it to hear it from members and other people. So maybe you should make a public announcement if it's life or death, if it's blot out of the book of life or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you care about your people like you say you do? No, you don't. That's why you don't do anything. You just
Uh,
want you want to keep your members so they don't go tithe to Daniel Park instead of you.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's you hit the nail on the head. It's all about it wasn't a big deal until the people that are leaving, and these people are missionaries, title holders, got good jobs, and at the end of the day it's all about the money. So if they're watching this, WMS, like Marissa said, Mama Zhang, do better. Your children are getting plucked out. But it's actually funny because it reminded me you using that word. Reminded me of Daniel Park. One of his favorite prophecies was like the sickle, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if he's now going to say like, yeah, I'm sickling all the, all the people from the WMS. It's crazy. Like there you go. I gave you a free prophecy to use, Daniel Park. But no, in
Yeah,
all
sounds good.
seriousness, in all seriousness, I can't even say that word because none of this, like to me, like this whole thing is crazy to me. Like I can't take them seriously. It's like history is repeating itself. The same verse that they used to always use, where it's like there's nothing new under the sun, everything that has been will be again. It's history repeating itself. An San Hong dies, church splits. Well, Daniel Park, you know what I mean,
He jumped the gun,
gets
but
jumped the gun, but it's like what they're prepping for, and you're seeing these splits, and I don't think it's gonna be the last. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it's crazy. But you guys got anything else to add?
Mm,
Amy,
Um, I don't know, not necessarily. I think the same as you, Edgar. It's like this is so crazy, this situation.
Uh,
Um, I think that there was something you said earlier that really kind of hit my heart because it's true where it's like we really want everyone to leave the World Mission Society. Like our hope is for those who are trapped, for those we actually, let me rephrase that. We want everyone to investigate the World Mission Society and to make a conscious choice on if that's what they want to be or not. And our hope is that you'll realize that things are better on the outside and there's freedom. But when it comes to the case of the New Jerusalem Church of God, um, we don't want you to go there because when you understand about the process of the church, there's love bombing. The first thing that's going to happen when you join this New Jerusalem Church of God is you're going to experience love bombing. You haven't been treated right in the World Mission Society for a long time. Maybe you were a leader 10 years ago. Maybe you've still been dedicating every day or your life. You've given money, you've given your time, and you still are disrespected as an individual. Then what is the New Jerusalem Church of God going to do? They're gonna understand what you went through because they also endured those things in that organization. So did we. So, you know, um, they're gonna take advantage. I feel like taking advantage of that vulnerability that we have. And instead of you making a conscious decision to investigate the church and see really why that happened, um, you're going to be put into a whole process again, right? Love bombed. Then you're probably gonna be very dedicated and spend your time and your money, and you're gonna feel, actually, for many of these members, they probably already have spent time and money towards this, including time to study these things. They mean they're dedicated, right? For those who are following already. But for those who are being recruited, I just want you guys to reconsider, because I would rather you stay in the World Mission Society than to start a whole process again for another 10 years and give your life into a deeper situation, because you're only going to build layers that you're going to have to dig yourself out of later. So if you can take advice from anyone, don't dig your hole that deep, because there's not going to be a ladder. You're going to have to dig your stairs the way back out. Trust me. And when you get into this organization, you're only doing that to yourself. You're going to start the whole cycle of your emotions again. And it could be another 10 years. So I just
Danny,
want members to think about that.
you're blowing my mind because, like, when you think about, have you guys ever seen Inception
I haven't.
with Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio?
where he goes to the planets? No.
No, it's where he's like in a dream, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's like they're in a dream and within a dream, within a dream. And every time they have to get out of that dream, they put on the music on their ears and they wake up out of one dream. But when you're in a dream within a dream within a dream, you have to wake up from each, climb out of it dream by dream. So you wake up from that dream and you're in this dream, wake up from that dream and you're in this dream, and then you're finally out in reality.
Hmm.
And the way you explained it, it really feels like that because you're in such a dream when you're indoctrinated and brainwashed in the World Mission Society Church of God, even for 10 years. But then I think, were you the one who explained it like the snow globe
Oh, yeah, like a
example
globe. Hmm.
or like a dream? If you just take a minute to research and get out of that dream and make a conscious decision, you'll be so much better off. Because if you're hurt and you know the World Mission Society Church of God is not right, they're doing things wrong, there's abuse, there's corruption, and you go into a whole nother cult It's going to be like that inception. You're in a dream within a dream, and you're going to be that much deeper. And then you're going to have to wake up from both. You're going to have to crawl out of Daniel Park's prophecies and all that deception. And then you're going to need to like deconstruct from both at that
Mhm.
point to where you're finally out in reality and you're like, oh my gosh, both were a dream that I had to wake up from.
Right. Because you
How
can.
wild is it to both what you guys said, that is deep, because to me it's like using that analogy, of the snow globe and also the dream, and then I'm also looking at it from like a even a relationship point of view. It's like getting out of one toxic relationship to jump into a even more toxic one. In my opinion, I think it will be much harder to deconstruct from Daniel Park's teachings than it would be deconstructing from the WMSCOG's teachings.
Mhm.
But yeah, you guys, that's a good point. That's a good point what
Yeah.
you guys said.
I was gonna piggyback on that, and I think it's because already in the World Mission Society you feel chosen, right? But even the church itself puts out videos of sheep and goats, right? So even head office shows that there's a distinction according to them, you know. So I feel like the members that are in this church, there isn't a sheep or goat. I think they all think they are the sheep. You know, they are the 144,000. They are the child of promise. They are Jacob. They have no doubt. So in the World Mission Society, there's doubt, you know, and that's part of the tactics that they use. I don't know how that's being used in the New Jerusalem Church of God.
Wow.
Mhm.
I mean, just imagine to the members in the in the New Jerusalem Church of God. I would tell you guys, if you guys don't want to listen to us, I mean, whatever, but keep your eyes and ears open, because something tells me once. Here's the thing about Daniel Park, and I told you guys this in private. I feel like Daniel Park is a great teacher, right? When it comes to manipulating the Bible prophecies, he's the best, no one better. But I also think that he's also another Cheddar Bob, because he shoots himself in the foot, because these prophecies, he makes them so time specific that when it doesn't happen, you either have to come up with another prophecy right on the fly about the very next year and why that year wasn't actually it, and then you can
Branding.
keep them going. But if not, members are going to eventually start burning themselves out. And so, what I want the members to pay attention to is this. Right now, Daniel Park is telling you that the WMSCOG was false and it's the weeds and the wheat and da 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 da. And like you guys were saying, in his church, it's all 144,000 children of promise. Watch what's going to happen in a year or two when some of those members start falling out because of his failed prophecies or burnouts. Is he then going to bring in another weeds and wheat or another Ishmael and Isaac into the New Jerusalem Church of God? So if a member from there happens to leave, what happens then? Is it like, what was it? Was it 144? I thought only children of promise can go there. Only the ones who hear the parable. So how many layers, of this is are we going to keep hearing? You know what I mean? Like, how many versions of this are we going to keep hearing? Because it's starting to get very confusing. You know what I mean? Honestly, it's making my brain hurt. Like, how many? It's just wild to me, honestly. Like, but yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I want to end with this. Kind of what I asked Toni, because I think we always kind of end all the videos the same way. So I want to end with this, with what I asked Toni. If you guys had a chance to say something to Pastor Daniel Park, if he's watching this, or if the message gets relayed to him, what would you guys say?
Mm.
I it's it's kind of heartbreaking when I really think about what I would want to say to him. there was an intimate time I had, not intimate, but just one-on-one when I was leading the church in Laramie. And it was just me and him sitting across from each other and talking about this and how, the plan for the church in Laramie, eating Korean barbecue. And I still, I, I don't know what I would want to say to him. I would, my heart kind of hurts because I, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to say, I don't know if I have a message to send to him, but what I would really wish to do is pick his brain. I want to know, do you really believe what you're doing, Daniel? Or are you just, this is all you have left to do? Because you cannot have any part with the World Mission Society Church of God anymore. So this is all you're left with. You have nothing else left. What are you going to go do? Is it like what I would really want to pick his brain, but also I guess I would want to say it's not too late to knock it off, like be free from all this delusional stuff yourself and go live the rest of your life just doing something else because, if he really believes in God, this is not the way to heaven. Joining a cult and then creating a cult. Like it's not too late just to be humble, let it all go and live your own life and just stop damaging people. I know somewhere in there he has charisma, he has charm, he has a good heart. I've seen the good sides to him. So I wish like if any message got to him is just encouragement that it's not too late for him either and he could just stop and that's more worth the other path he's going down.
Mm.
That's good.
I was thinking something actually very similar because there was a time um, he came out in Denver and he said, "Don't you think that I want to eat with others too? Every time I go sit down, everyone leaves." And I think that at that point he felt like, he was trying his best as a leader. Um, and the I don't want to cry because I always am a crybaby, but the reason I mention this is because you're a human. You have feelings, and what you experienced is not limited to the World Mission Society Church of God. But what you experienced is because it's a systematic environment that breeds those kinds of people and those kinds of actions. And I just want, I don't know if you remember it, Daniel Park, but I think that I was allowed to have more compassion on you at that time because me personally, I always felt you were extremely strict, especially the leaders that were over me. Um, but I just want you to know that it isn't too late, that someone does care about you. Trust me, I'm sure someone still thinks about you even if you've been in there a long time. And um, just like it's not too late for you, think about what you might be taking from other people, their family for another 5, 10 years, their jobs, their money. Is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Like, I get it. You guys may say, yeah, God's worth it. But the one you believe in is God isn't even on your back. As much as you try to spin it, just be truthful with yourself because you are worth it more. You are worth to yourself more than you're worth to that organization. You will be so thankful. And I promise that after leaving, you will you will be thankful. You'll be thankful for not doing that anymore. you'll really see that it's not it's not just you. It wasn't just that leader like you've been told, but it's the organization is going, no matter what environment you're in, it's going to breed that. So you accepting that and forgiving yourself and moving on. I think that's the best advice I could give, without getting too crybabyish.
That, that's amazing that you point that out, because when you think of his life, it's really like it, like he joined when he was so young himself. So he's really a product of his environment. And he had to go through so much spiritual abuse and indoctrination. And we've seen sides of Daniel Park that do show, like you said, Amy, that he's human, and he's been in it way, it's probably even harder. He's been in it from Korea way longer than us from the start. And like I remember a time when he apologized to all of like the church wives. You might have even been there. It was a time in the old Denver Zion, 8th and Holly, and he was crying and he was saying he was sorry for not doing a better job. And those are the parts that that seep through, that he is human, and there's part of him that has good intentions. And it's not too late to stop and have your dignity and have that good part of you, Daniel Park, to just stop and come out and heal yourself.
Mhm.
I don't even know how I'm supposed to one up you guys. You guys set the bar too high. I was gonna crack some jokes. Now I feel bad. So,
Do it.
I was just gonna say, in all seriousness, Daniel Park, like I never had that type of relationship with him like that. So I'm not gonna front. I definitely talked to him, but our conversations weren't very productive, or I didn't really get too much from the one-on-one. One time we're sitting there in front of each other. I'm nervous because, I'm thinking this guy's a real life apostle. And I'm like, I can't think of, like, in my mind, I'm always like, man, if I had the opportunity, I would say this. And I'd be like, yeah, I'll show him what prophecies I know and da da da. And I sit in front of him and I'm starstruck because that's the type of person that he was. He had such charisma, and you really like believe this guy was like just an apostle. And so I remember freezing, and I can't think of any words to say. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting embarrassed. Just I'm like, Pastor, nice tie. Oh my God, it was the worst. So he just looks at me. He's like, gets up and walks away. like, oh, I was embarrassed. Like, oh, it was bad because so I'll give him this. He's a very humble guy in comparison to like Daniel Lee and General Pastor, because I met General Pastor. That dude ain't got one humble bone in his body. That, I mean, it was like you had to roll the red carpet out. He looked like he was upset that people were coming up to him, shaking his hand. Like Daniel Park, to me, he at least gave off that vibe where like I really felt that he was humble. He was very strict, but it was because he was always trying to get you into the word, even though he was chopping it up incorrectly. But I wouldn't say he's lost in the sauce. I'd say he is the sauce. Like that guy is something else. But I guess if I could say anything to him, I'd say nice tie. No, I'll just say I'd say, you know, that like you guys were saying, like it's definitely not too late. I would say that, to think about the members, because I know deep inside Daniel Park, like I don't know why. I can't say that I know why exactly you're doing what you're doing. I have my ideas like we all do, but I'm not sure. But I will say this: I believe you built like real relationships with some of these people that you brought into that church. and you know that what you're doing is not right. You might believe, I don't know what you might believe to a certain extent, but something inside you has to tell you that putting these people back into this spin cycle all over again, like you guys were saying, possibly ruining, taking another 10 years, 15 years of their life, because either you're trying to get back at someone or whatever it may be, it's not right. And it's not worth it. I would say Daniel Park, like, you have charisma. You have what it takes to be a leader. If you really believe in God, there is so much opportunity out there for you. Dude, if you became a Christian and would like really became a pastor, I would 100% join your church. 1000% join your church. But you got to cut it out. Like Marissa said, she said it in a nice way, but to me it's like cut it out, bro. You know that what you're saying is not true. Quit doing that, and just stop, bro. And I would say that there's a lot of people that love you. You know what I mean? I think that you might be surprised if you give up this whole thing that's going on, that there will be people that actually will support you. I'd support you way more than I would support the WMSCOG. I guarantee you that. And I think that everybody deserves, another chance, and they're not, no one is too far gone, and so yeah, that's what I would say. But any closing words?
Oh, there's so many things we didn't touch on, but I feel like for the most part,
It's always part two.
yep,
Always
Yeah.
part
all
two.
things Daniel Park.
All things Daniel Park, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there it is, folks. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please smash the like button. And if any of Daniel Park's people or Daniel Park is watching this, or the WMS is watching this, I hope you enjoyed the content. Hope you subscribe. Daniel Park, I'd love to have you on the channel, bro. Look, if you give it up, I promise you can sit right next to me and we could take down the WMS together. How about that? In all seriousness, I really enjoyed the episode. Thank you, you two, and also Toni for joining the episode. So that being said, hope all of you enjoyed this episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG.